Hello, my name is Jacob Adams, and I'm a fitness and leadership coach. I'm also the creator of the concept known as common sense self-mastery. Have you ever thought about taking the program Self-Authoring, composed by Jordan Peterson? If you're like me, you may have stumbled across it on the web. You know, in the podcast behind me, he's actually being interviewed by Jocko Willink, who's one of the people I really admired. And so when I saw these two talking, I was like, well, wait, they met, they interviewed each other, which is pretty cool what's going on today in cyberspace, right? And so have you ever heard about self-authoring? I'm willing to bet that if you've found this link, or maybe you're one of my subscribers, or et cetera, you know, you yourself have thought about doing the self-authoring program. And I actually went ahead and did it and signed up for it. Now, honestly, I thought, oh, just another program. You know, I've already done so much self-analysis. And for those of you that have already done the self-authoring, this epoch of my life, as you know, one of the vernacular vocabulary words in self-authoring, this epoch of my life has been one of healing. That's exactly what I label it, the epoch of healing. And so when I found self-authoring, I started sensing some of the same stuff, like Jungian psychology, that those of you that know that Jordan Peterson goes into that. Jungian psychology type stuff, the idea of unlocking trapped emotions in a part of the lower brain emotional cortex, and intellectualizing things and being free from our baggage. I actually got into understanding baggage, et cetera, with some of Neil Strauss's concepts called the bag of shit. And so I knew what he was getting at, Jordan Peterson. What I really liked about his overall presentation is he kept bringing it up, and then, believe it or not, for whatever reason, I actually talked to my friend Drew Cirillo in Michigan, and I said, have you heard of this guy, Jordan Peterson? And Drew automatically says, oh my goodness, I love Jordan Peterson. I got his program, Self-Authoring, and he's so awesome. And I'm like, and so I sent him the podcast that you see playing behind me. And I'm like, well, this is my hero, and they met, and this is such a good interview. And, you know, I left it at that. At the end of this interview, for those of you that haven't seen this interview, he does give a promo code, which is Jocko Willink's last name, Willink, for 20% off. And so I went to the website, kind of looked what it was about, and I really didn't understand, you know, what was I going to get for a certain amount of money. And I kind of looked too good to be true, because I went and he was given 2 programs, in other words, the entire program out for, you know, $30. And with a 20% discount, I mean, this thing came out to be like super affordable. And I said, well, I'll just give one out as a gift. In any case, I went ahead and bought the program, and I opened it up, right? And so I began getting in there, and you see, like, it was kind of funny that I found Jordan Peterson. Time out for a second, because I was actually looking at some of the stuff that he was known for talking about, like his C16 transgender type law that some people in Canada are like forcing people to refer to themselves as Z or Zer or all these other pronouns. So actually it's pretty profound that I actually resonated with that idea. But the more I looked at his work, I found this self-authoring was one of his core contributions for people to sort of engage and create their own work. So this self-authoring program is what I found. So fast forward to when I bought it and put the promo code in. So it came out to maybe $25, $246, or $23, I'm not sure. You know, you get the idea, 20% off 30. And you get, so it's like $130 value, because you get 2 of the programs for now. I don't know how much longer that's gonna last. And I'm not associated with his program at all. I don't make a single dime off saying this. This is really just me giving my review. In any case, I began the process of doing my self-authoring about a week ago. It was Thursday, about a week ago. And, you know, just kind of the first part, willy-nilly, whatever, just did it and put it away. And I was excited, like, okay, well, maybe I'll finish it. As when I finally got to finishing my future authoring, which I have right here, Well, see, this is how the program looks in its entirety. So this is, I've labeled it past authoring. So it's about 60 pages long when it's all completed, because and then this one right here is 23 pages long, future authoring. You could say because this one is composed of 2 to 3 decades of my life, all, talked about, analyzed, meaning what they mean, and this is, you could say, the next 3 to 5 years. So it makes sense why this one's going to be relatively shorter than this one. In any case, it's taken me, I sat down day after day, and he does recommend that you take a few days at a time to do it. In other words, an hour or two the first day, 2 hours the next day, maybe 2 hours the next day, because the mind starts collectively working on it. So it has Jungian concepts of the subconscious and stuff built into the actual production of this program. So it's preferable that you pan it out over a whole week, if you're going to do both. It took me about a week, I don't know, maybe 30 hours, maybe 20 to do all of them. Let's say 7 or so for future, another 14, 15 to 20 for the past authoring. So past authoring took me about 15 to 20, and then future authoring took me about 7 to 10, and then there's the virtues and stuff that I still haven't gotten to. I'm not gonna just get into that right now. Like, I feel like I have enough of future authoring and self-authoring. I don't want to break. Now, when I did complete the self-authoring or the past authoring just yesterday, it said that there's 2 things that you should be looking for. 1, you're able to explain to people a sequential state of events as to how you came to be who you are, the person you see in front of you. And I can do that. So I did it right. I can confidently tell you that I've analyzed my life enough over the last 3-4 days where if you were to ask me why I do what I do, why I'm wearing a black coat, why I have this podcast in the back, why I'm making videos, why I chose to be a trainer, like anything you ask me, I will be able to give you a sequential sequential explanation, giving you the explanation of the invisible thread as to why it is that I'm in front of you. Okay, so that's part 1, if you do it correctly. Part 2 is, I think it says something like, most people or some people actually feel a little bit worse after completing this program. And I was one of those people. I was sort of feeling a little raw when I finished past authoring. When I finished future authoring, I felt amazing. When I finished past authoring, I was like, oh wow, shit, I felt like shit had hit the fan again or something, like some of the trauma that I had experienced, and which is some of the stuff I'm going to get into now, okay? Well, I went ahead and did it, so you do need an ample amount of time. You need to buy the program. You can use a promo code, decide which one you want to do first. In all honesty, pick one. But it does make some sense that past authoring would go first, even though I did future authoring. So I'm not going to be telling you what to do because I did the opposite. I don't think there's an order, okay? But it makes sense that you might want to look at the past to design a better future. In any case, I did the future because I was like, well, I need to get to it. I need to get moving on the future, which is a great attitude. Okay. Well, once you decide that, this is what I actually found. When it came to, for example, the Dream Architect I titled it. It says the Dream Architect connect with his tribe, and that's one of the reasons I'm making this video. Right? Is to connect with like-minded people that have similar interests, people that are into fitness, coaching, getting better, self-improvement, okay? These are some big ideas as to music, stuff like that. I'm looking to connect with people like myself, and that's one of the main objectives of my future. So I've labeled it that, okay? Everything from Kriya, getting better at yoga, my business, designing my business, that was a big one of my goals. So you get a clarification of all your goals, and also you get a clarification of things to avoid. In other words, what habits do you know you're likely gonna be sort of coming out of the woodwork as you progress that are going to want to seduce you into draining your energy, taking your resources, your time, your money, your focus, your self-esteem. Like, these are the things that the program asks you to analyze, and what are you going to do to avoid it. So it's not only what you're going to do to improve, but what are you going to avoid to continue focusing on this, okay? So future authoring, again, can't speak highly enough about it. I'll be applying it and looking at it again. And so. The one I really want to get into, because it's so fresh today, is actually past authoring, okay? Past authoring. Well, I'm going to go ahead and share a little bit of my story as to some of my stuff and connect the dots between Neil Strauss's concept of the bag of shit, Jungian psychology as far as scripts go, understanding scripts, and also past authoring, and give you like a nice little package for you to observe somebody that I'm not a specialist in the terms of, I'm not some nerdy guy that's just reading Jungian psychology all day. I'm someone that coaches people. I'm someone that has a career, ambitions, dreams, goals, just like you. And so what I'm getting at is that as you hear what I'm about to say, I hope you hear the effort in how much I've introspectively looked at the science of psychology and how much I've analyzed it to see what works for me and what I can really do to become a better person. Because here's the thing. Let's start with scripts. What is a script, and et cetera, and what that has to do with past authoring. I'm going to connect the dots for you. And so let's start with the bag of shit first. Neil Strauss says that everybody has a bag of shit. And anytime you go into any environment or any situation, he said you bring that with you. And if you're not careful, you're going to get it in everybody's face. You're going to it's going to stink up the place. We're basically these walking environments, okay? We as humans, you, me, us, you, me, you, us, people, anyone you could think of, we are an environment. I'll say that again because it's kind of abstract. We, people, each one of us, is an environment. Like this room is an environment, but we are an environment. And when we go into a situation, when we meet somebody or someone meets us, think about that time you were at the library or you were at Starbucks, then someone else entered the room. It changed the dynamic a little bit, didn't it? Maybe you found yourself having to focus more or focus less, or maybe there was a reduction in stress. See, because people do change the situation. All right, it's a common sense, okay? But just like I can't scratch my right elbow with my right hand, that's what the bag of shit is. It's very hard to really understand your bag of shit. Now, keep that in mind. It's hard to really scratch, the way it's hard to scratch your right elbow with your right hand, see, I'm trying to do it now, in the same way that's challenging, okay? You really oftentimes don't know where you have a bag of shit. Another word for a bag of shit, you could say scripts. These things that sometimes situations or people or looks or fragrances trigger you and put you in a state of mind. And now this script is almost like it's not like a script in a play so much, or it's not so always that way. It could be, think of it like a program that's trapped, okay? And it's triggered, and then you begin falling into a state, and in that state, you sort of become this other person. Like, you might even have said it, when you meet someone else, man, you bring this side out of me. Something like that. That's a script, okay? Where ideally, you don't want situations to have so much influence over you and us and people that someone can in a way trigger you and control you with your buttons. You want to, as Neil Strauss said, ideally, or one of his goals is you might be fine with your buttons. Neil Strauss said he wants to become buttonless, okay? And so that's a good overarching long-term good goal. Okay, it's an amazing goal. If you really think about it, like to have no buttons, like, okay, let's just say one person watches this video Or let's say 0 people watch this video, okay? And I'm just like, that's awesome. And say 1,000 people watch this video, I'm like, that's awesome, right? Or let's say 3,000 people watch this video, that's awesome. And it's awesome either way. Let's say it gets a thumbs down. It's like, and I can say, well, that's awesome, you know? See, that's a little harder to say it's awesome too, honestly, but what if I can, right? What if there is no way to trigger me, right? And that's what I'm getting at. So where there's less ability for people to trigger you, you could say you're becoming buttonless, and therefore you're mastering the scripts that were at one time mastering you. And what does this have to do with past authoring? Okay, well, today I'll be telling you a little bit about my trauma, okay, as growing up, all right? Now, this is sort of the hardest thing for me to go into. It feels like it's gonna flow out of me right now. Maybe it's because I like pent myself up to get in front of this camera and my energy is flowing, or maybe I might need to get a drink of water here. I don't know. But what I'm about to tell you is pretty intense, okay? Now let's just say this, watch. Everybody has, typically everybody has trauma. Things that happen in their formative years, whether it was 7. Now I'm gonna give you an extreme case. It's an extreme case, but some of you watching this may be your case, okay? Some people were touched incorrectly. You know, you hear that sometimes there was priests that touched altar boys, etc. That's a scandal. Now that's an extreme case, and you know, if that happened to you, please, well, my all due respect, I'm using your story just to illustrate that that's an obvious type of trauma, okay? Rightfully so, okay? That's sort of we'll call that a big trauma, okay? And then I have friends that have little traumas. In other words, their parents sort of little by little pecked at them all their life. You know, and they sort of were told them like they're not good enough subtly, they're not good enough this. And so like I say, that's a bunch of little traumas, and they're still going. The parents could still be going with this situation, kind of slightly picking on their kids, insinuating things, throwing shade at them. You know, these are a bunch of little traumas. And as Neil Strauss said, sometimes it's often better to have one big trauma than a bunch of little ones, because it's so hard to sort of pinpoint where those are, okay? Myself, in front of you, for the most part, I had one big trauma, okay? Now, there might have been smaller ones, but there's definitely one that stands out in my life as to how I came to be who I am, what drove me, and sort of stuff like that. And that relationship is the relationship with my father. That's sort of the most traumatic relationship that I have in my life, okay? That's the hardest one for me. For Jacob Adams, that's the hardest one. And it could be with your mom, it could be with your sibling, I don't know. I'm just sharing with you my trauma today. Now, as we get ready to switch into the next screen, because this is going to have to be a 2-part video, kind of bear with me for the next few seconds. And so, in any case, trauma with my dad. Well, my father, the best that I can give this to you is this. My grandpa